Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, let's just get right to the heart of this. President Trump wants to cut the State Department budget by 37% and then move the money over to the Defense Department in order to build more bombs. So that's going to create a dynamic that is very dangerous inside of the country. Right now, Russia, Turkey, and Iran are gathered in Astana to shore up the ceasefire, and the Geneva talks are scheduled to resume this week, but the United States doesn't appear prepared to have a significant role in any of the upcoming discussions, even though the United States has been a part of this war almost from the very beginning. So, Secretary Miliband, how long can America remain absent from these discussions if we're going to be able to reinforce a ceasefire, protect civilians, allow medical and other relief to go to victims?
Well, thank you, Senator. First of all, I think it's important to recognize what the doctor said earlier, that the notion that there's a current ceasefire is an abuse of the term ceasefire.
I agree
because
with you.
there is significant activity still taking place. Secondly, without a U.S. voice speaking up for the protection of civilians, there will be no voice doing that. Thirdly,
so we need U.S. diplomats at the table. Is that what you're saying?
I would argue very strongly for that, and I think there's something that Senator Rubio and Senator Cardin have started, this accountability bill that they've introduced. It could very powerfully be linked to a recent resolution in the UN General Assembly for bringing together trial-ready material to hold accountable those who commit war crimes. And while it's true that the UN Security Council is deadlocked, the UN General Assembly is not deadlocked. There's a massive majority of countries ready to support that kind of initiative.
Mr. Kenny Geyer, child soldiers, it's not just ISIS, it's also the Free Syrian Army that are engaged in conscripting children into their armies. What would you recommend that the position of the United States should be in terms of what we use our influence to try to ensure is the policy in Syria?
Thank you, Senator. Well, obviously, with respect to child soldiers anywhere, whether that's in Africa, whether that's in the Middle East or other parts of the world, we have to have a firm policy that is unacceptable, and those who engage should be held accountable. And I think Senator Rubio described it very well in his description. Is Syria has devolved into a situation now where any fair-minded person looking at it is going to go, it's hard to sort out who are the good guys and who are the bad guys. It is not crystal clear who the good guys are. But what is crystal clear is that stability in Syria, stability in the Middle East is critically important for every interest that this country has in that part of the world, and is critically important to our national security. And as the doctors reminded us, the only solution there's not a humanitarian solution. Frankly, there's not a military solution. We know the only solution is one that is diplomatic going forward. And I certainly would urge and believe that we'll end up with a lot better solution, one that's more in U.S. interest to the degree that we are engaged and at the table.
So you're just, once again, reinforcing this point that whether it be the ceasefire or it be the conscription of child soldiers all the way down the line, the longer the war goes on is the more each side begins to engage in activities that are atrocities by any definition. And so that's why the United States can't abandon the diplomatic pathway. It's the only solution ultimately to this problem. Can you talk a little bit about the programs that we can put in place in the country to protect women and girls, if you've got any suggestions to us that the United States government should be trying to advance?
Well, the biggest protector of women and girls are the community norms and structures that already exist inside Syria. And to the degree that we can support, and all of us work with this, IRC, Mercy Corps, there are credible civilian local councils inside Syria that aren't involved in the politics, aren't involved in the fighting, and believe one day they're going to have the opportunity to build a better Syria. It's in that context where you support organizations like ourselves who work through local Syrian groups. That's the best way to ensure the protection of girls and women.
Do we need to be talking to the Russians to get this resolved, in your opinion?
I think one needs to talk to anyone who
Including
has
the
interest
Russians?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Miliband, do we have to be talking to the Russians to get this resolved, in your opinion?
Definitely, but progress depends on what you say to them.
I appreciate that, but you have to have the discussions with them. If you don't have the discussion, it's just repetition syndrome. We're just going to see this go on year after year. You agree with that?
I do. I think that the other thing to say is that Russia and Iran are not natural allies. And we should not take it as a matter of definite course that they are cleaved together in an alliance that is unbreakable. And there are some signs that Russia and Iran are sending different messages into the system. And I think it's in your interest, in American interest, that they do not cleave together.
Thank you. I agree with you.